crazy story time about how my husband tried to unalive me and my lover when he caught us cheating. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. By the way, I'm at the airport again. I don't know how I always end up at the airport trying to do voiceover, so sorry if it sounds weird. My husband and I have been together for 10 years, but we were best friends before we ever decided to get into a relationship. One thing about me is that I've never been able to stay loyal in a relationship. And because my husband was my friend before, he knew that. It was a running joke in our friend group that I was never going to be able to stay loyal to one man. Eventually, when my husband and I got married, he totally never thought that I would be able to do that to him. I mean, I never thought I was going to be able to cheat on him, but there I go. Fast forward to 4 months ago. I work in the fashion industry and I'm constantly in contact with lots of models and good-looking people. So this cute guy comes into my office and he's a model, and he started flirting with me right away. I mean, he was actually pretty much flirting with every woman in the office, but I was like, oh my god, he's so cute. I had 3 options. I could ignore the flirting, or I could flirt back, or I could flirt back and give him my number. I went with option C. I gave him my number and he texted me later that day asking if I wanted to go to dinner. I said yes. So I told my husband that I was going to be staying at the office late, which I did all the time anyway, and he trusted me. After that dinner, this guy and I were totally inseparable. We would meet up for lunch every single day and hang out for a few hours after I finished work, or sometimes I would get off work early to go hang out with him. I told this guy I was going through a separation and that's why I couldn't stay over at his place. And he believed me. By the way, I'm using the shade Verano from my Tanya collection with Auna. If you guys want to shop it, it's the link in my bio. My husband travels for work a lot, and this was my saving grace. Whenever my husband would go out on trips, I'd invite my boyfriend to stay over at my house. While on one of those trips, my husband came home early and didn't bother to tell me. Apparently, he already had his suspicions and wanted to catch me in a lie. He catches me and my lover in the act. My husband went psycho, you guys. He grabbed his gun and held us at gunpoint for 4 hours. Part 2 is up. 2 of how my husband tried to unalive me and my lover when he caught us cheating. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. When my husband catches us in the act, he pulls out his gun and holds us at gunpoint for 4 hours. The entire time, he was trashing our bedroom. My boyfriend, aka the model I was cheating on him with, basically cried the entire time and didn't say a word. While me, on the other hand, was trying to explain to my husband that he knew that I was like this. Well, that just made him angrier. Eventually, I told him that I would give him a divorce if he wanted one. And that's when my husband told me that he was never going to divorce me and that I was going to stay loyal to him for the rest of my life. And I promised him that I would. Finally, after 4 hours, he made me promise never to see this guy again, which I agreed to. The guy told me that he would never want to see me again and that he didn't want any trouble. He also told my husband that he was a victim in this whole thing and that I lied to him about being in a relationship, which is kind of true. So then my husband got even angrier. My boyfriend ran out of the house and promised not to call the police. That's when my husband told me that he already knew about the relationship and that he had been spying on me with him this whole time. When I asked him how he'd been spying, he didn't want to tell me. This led me to believe that he probably has cameras around our house and that he probably put some spyware stuff in my phone so he knows exactly what I'm doing on it. Then he told me that from now on I was to never take the pill again and that he wanted me to get pregnant as soon as possible. My career is super important to me and he knows that I don't want to have kids just yet. But now he's basically forcing me into having children. Told him we should really consider getting a divorce or at least going to couples counseling, and he doesn't want to. I know I shouldn't have cheated on him, but at the same time, I'm being forced into staying in this relationship and I'm being forced into getting pregnant. He's even dropping me off at work and picking me up. I feel like he's always watching me and I don't know what to do. I also feel bad because I broke his heart and I know he's hurting, but he's totally going about this the wrong way. I know you guys are going to have some advice on what I should do, so please comment. My best friend thinks I should just go file for divorce during my lunch break, but I don't know. I feel like it's just going to make him kill me. What should I do?
Story time about how my lying, cheating husband moved his mistress into our home. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My husband is a classic narcissist. He's a total love bomber, lies, and gaslights. We met through some friends at a party, and the day that we met, he totally love bombed me. He told me I was the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen, that he wanted to marry me, and that we should have kids. Unfortunately, I believed everything he said. On our second day, he told me that he loved me. And when I didn't tell him that I loved him back, he got really upset and told me that we shouldn't see each other anymore. A few weeks passed, but I couldn't stop thinking about him, so I reached out. Worst mistake of my life. At the time, I didn't realize how wealthy he was. But boy, did he start letting me know. He would flaunt that he was super rich and even invited me on a trip, which he paid for. We ended up going to the Bahamas and it was magical. Of course, I started falling in love with him. The last day of the trip, he actually asked me to marry him and I said yes. My whole family thought it was absolutely crazy of me because I only knew him for about 2 weeks. When we got back home, I moved into his beautiful house. You see, I was in a really bad situation. I had a part-time job, no savings, and basically no future. At least that's what he said. So when I moved in, he insisted that I quit my job and basically tend to the house, which I did. So I had no money of my own. This was around the time that he would start gaslighting me. Whenever we got into fights, he would call me names and just threaten me. And when I would bring it up later on, he would totally deny that he ever said anything like that. When we started planning the wedding, things calmed down. He was always at work and I was always at home. We finally got married and went on our honeymoon to Italy. And that's when he started changing even more. He would shame me whenever I tried to post a cute picture of myself on Instagram. And he basically convinced me that I was trying to get attention from other guys, so I stopped posting. Our third night in Italy, he got drunk and we got into a really big fight. I decided to leave the hotel, but when I came back a few hours later, he had a random girl in his room and told me to leave. I couldn't believe his behavior. After about 20 minutes, he let me back into the room and told the girl to leave. That's when I told him I was going to go back home and that I made a huge mistake by marrying him. He apologized and started crying. He said nothing happened to her and part of me just wanted to believe him so desperately, so I did. When we got back home, he was on his best behavior. Until one day he told me he wanted to hire a live-in cleaning lady. Little did I know it was his mistress. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband moved his mistress into our home. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My narcissist of a husband told me he wanted to hire a cleaning lady. A live-in cleaning lady. A few days later, he shows up with this woman who clearly did not look like a cleaning lady. When I told him I did not want her living in our home, he told me that I had to do what he said because he was the breadwinner. Mind you, he told me to quit my job, so I did. That's when he told me that somebody needed to clean the house, cook for him, and basically take care of him. In other words, I wasn't doing that. Which isn't true because I made him dinners every single day and cleaned the entire house. I told him I knew she wasn't a cleaning lady and that he needed to kick her out. He got really angry and slammed the door. A few minutes later, I hear him coming up the stairs with her. He shows her to the guest room and tells her to settle in. Then he came back into the room, told me that I had to deal with it and that this is how things were gonna be from now on. By the way, this girl is Russian, and my husband told me that she did not speak English. So basically, I had no way to communicate with her. But my husband did speak Russian, isn't that convenient? So, every single day, this girl would pretend to wash dishes, pretend to clean his clothes, pretend to make the bed. Oh yeah, and she would only wash his dishes, not mine. The situation was way too much for me, so I told my husband I was gonna go stay with my sister. That's when he threatened me and told me that if I left, I might not be able to come back. So of course, I packed my things and went straight to my sister's house. The very next day, my husband shows up to my sister's house with divorce papers. He told me I needed to sign them because he fell in love with the cleaning lady. I told him I wouldn't sign them and he left. Then my sister called the police and told them that my husband had a woman captive in his house and that she was probably in the country illegally. And guess what, y'all? She was. The cops actually took her from the house and now he's asking me to move back in. He took the whole divorce back and wants to take me on a trip. My sister thinks I should get back with him just to make his life miserable. The problem is I have no money of my own. And to be honest, part of me still loves him. I really need some advice and perspective from someone who's not me.